I don't believe in adding pictures to audio. That's my opening statement to you, Mark. I know it's important.
Have we begun?
Yeah,
have we begun?
And I know lots of people like to watch us on YouTube. I'm just suggesting that too much attention is paid to what we look like.
Well, the hilarious thing is, so you're in your house in Showbiz North London.
Yeah.
I'm in Ali's attic, where I have literally got everything balanced upon, books and bits of wire and string. Until about 2 seconds ago, in between us was the be-headphoned figure of Simon Poole, who only just remembered to turn his camera off.
Oh, really? That's a shock. First thing in the morning.
How are you doing?
Yeah. Very good. I have, but so for example, the first thing that I did this morning was arrange my bookshelf.
Yes.
So I had a bet with Josh that you'd spot this before we got anywhere.
Yeah.
But the astute listener will have noticed this and also this.
You've suddenly gone into soft definition. So what are you pointing at?
I'm pointing at 2 books on my bookshelf. Can you not see?
Yeah, I know, I can see that. But what are the books that you're pointing at?
Okay, I'm going to remove them slowly.
Okay, fine.
This is why I don't believe in pictures.
Okay.
What is this one?
Oh, that's Steven Spielberg's Children.
By
Dr. Linda Ruth Williams, Professor Linda Ruth Williams, the definitive guide to children in the films of Steven Spielberg. And that is Surround Sound by Jenny Nelson and some bloke that she used to produce.
Just saying. A curated shelf.
Well done.
Thank you.
That's nicely curated. It's looking fine. Looking very, very fine.
To contribute to the show, really, other than I have a curated bookshelf.
There was
your books prominent.
There was some correspondence apparently last week when we were talking about the Korean edition of Movie Doctors.
Yeah.
And some people said that's not a Korean edition, that's a Chinese edition. No, there are 2 separate editions. The Korean edition, which is the one that, do you have it there?
Yeah.
Which is the one with the doctor with laser beams coming out of their eyes, for which I am told that the title does not translate as the Movie Doctors. It translates as something like Movies Need to Go to the Surgery.
Chinese version.
There we go. I don't think I've got a copy of that version.
This is still wrapped.
Did you get it from the publishers?
Yeah.
Wow. I must get onto them and see whether I've got one.
Well, it says the Movie Doctors in English and then everything else in
fine.
Chinese.
But you don't know what it's like inside, because the Korean one inside is fantastic. I mean, the design is absolutely brilliant. The very best edition of any book of mine that I have is the Japanese edition of the BFI Modern Classics on The Exorcist, because the design of it is just astonishingly good.
Now, I've got an open one here. And,
oh, right, fine.
And it looks pretty much the same as the UK.
So hang on a minute, you've got 2 copies of it?
I have 2 Chinese copies.
Does it not occur to you that one of them may be mine?
I would imagine the publisher would send you your copies and me my copies. That's why
I haven't got any copies of it.
I could sell you this for the price of a Linda Ruth Williams academic book.
Yeah, that'll do fine. So that's 142 quid, is it?
Exactly. Plus 50p. Anyway, enough bookshelf and visual banter. It's time that we unveiled what was on the show this week. So, Mark, what are you up to?
Well, coming up on the show this week, we have a review of Legends, which is the TV series that you spoke to Steve Coogan about last week.
Yes, we both did, really.
We both did. Well, I talked to him about Saipan because at that point I hadn't seen Legends, but obviously now I have, or at least I've seen the 4 episodes that they sent me. Mortal Kombat 2, obviously the sequel to Mortal Kombat, and The Sheep Detectives.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this.
It's The Sheep Detectives. What can I tell you?
Written by Craig Mazin. And
written by amazing Craig Mazin, yeah.
Yes. And the original title was apparently 3 Bags Full, but no one thought that anyone would know what it was about. But I suppose The Sheep Detectives at least says what it's about.
Yeah, the 3 Bags Full is the title of the book on which it is based. We'll get to all this when we get to the review, but yes, it was originally 3 Bags Full.
And in take 2...
Reflection in a Dead Diamond, which is a small but really, really interesting kind of horror, adventure, action, super spy thriller release. And Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft, the tour, live in 3D, directed by James Titanic Cameron.
Okay, excellent. I should mention, of course, that Ian McKellen is our special guest in this show.
Oh, sorry, yes.
I'm not quite sure how we forgot that. That's Sir Ian McKellen.
Sir Ian McKellen, talking about his new film, The Christophers, which we will review next week when it comes out, although we have both seen it.
Which is the new Steven Soderbergh film.
Yeah.
Vanguardistas get not only Take One ad-free, but also our weekly show, Take Two ad-free. And if you sign up on our Patreon as an Ultra, you get all that, plus our fortnightly extra show, Take Ultra. Take Ultra. It was a very fine edition last week.
It was.
Even more of the good stuff. Yeah. And so if you head over, if you'd like to join the club, and I wonder whose Patreon is better, ours or Bob Dylan's. Why Bob thinks he needs a Patreon, I'm not at all sure. But
does Bob Dylan have a Patreon page?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Patreon, you would, if you're a global superstar, one of the prime movers and shakers in the world's music, you don't need the support of Patreon, do you? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's not getting quite the royalties from
his permanent touring. An email here from Neil Marshall.
What, that Neil Marshall?
Dear Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, it's Neil Marshall. Yes, that Neil Marshall, the same Neil Marshall you thought might be that Neil Marshall last time. It
Hello,
was.
Neil Marshall.
So many thanks for reading out my email. Hellboy, Dog Soldiers, and The Descent, that was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, that Neil Marshall, yeah.
So many thanks for reading out my email. Perhaps lightning will strike twice, and it appears to have done. Recently, I was fortunate enough to see a special screening of Interstellar at the Royal Albert Hall in London, accompanied by a live orchestra and thunderous church organ. The place was packed out, and the audience were truly engaged and respectful of each other and the movie, not a mobile phone in sight. At several of the truly intense climactic moments, the entire place burst into spontaneous applause, and it reminded me of what it feels like to share the experience of a great movie in a way that we don't seem to in regular cinemas anymore. I've been to a few of these events now, and each one leaves me with the same buzz. Clearly, it's a trend that is catching on as the Albert Hall now has a yearly program of movies with live scores, and I see the O2 Arena has a few on its roster. Perhaps this is one possible future of cinema, regaining its status as a true event. Sure, it's more expensive than a regular cinema, but for a cinephile, it's absolutely worth it. If you haven't attended one of these screenings, I highly recommend it. Of course, it doesn't work for just any movie. Tarantino's films, for example, are mainly filled with needle drops, so they wouldn't work in this context. But anything with a classic score by Williams, Zimmer, Goldsmith, Morricone, and their ilk play like gangbusters. I quite fancy The Great Escape or The Magnificent Seven this way sometime. That would be amazing. Anyway, keep up the good work. Down with AI and long live the power of cinema, says that Neil Marshall. That one.
Well, that Neil Marshall is right that this is a booming industry. The live scores performed to the film is becoming a really, really big deal. Yeah. Can I just say that if you're enjoying that, certainly carry on enjoying that, but also have a go at seeing a score performed to a silent film, perhaps a score performed in an improvised fashion by a skiffle band accompanying Neil Brand, maybe a movie like Beggars of Life or City Girl, which we're going back to Bavaria. We're going back to Bavaria because we did City Girl before. We're going to go and do Beggars of Life quite soon. But
it's all about you.
Well, it's not all about me. It's all about live film music. And this is, as you will know, Simon, if I get a bee in my bonnet about something, I do tend to stick with it. And I have been going on about live film music for, many, many decades now. And it is rather wonderful that it is the hopes and predictions for it are coming true. And if you ever get a chance to see Neil Brand on his own, I mean, with or without the Dodge Brothers, just to see Neil Brand playing along, particularly to a series of early silent comedy shorts, then do, because it's just a wonderful experience just to see somebody watching a film and playing along to it completely spontaneously.
I would have Neil's. I'm now annoyed having read Neil's email because Interstellar, with the orchestra plus the organ, because we talked about this before. Organ, yeah. That organ is so incredible. It sounds so amazing on that soundtrack that would have been unmissable. Although, sadly, I did in fact miss it. Also, Amadeus was also unmissable, and I missed that as well. So the word unmissable is utterly pointless. But that's event cinema. That's what that is. Neil, thank you very much indeed for getting in touch. Okay, correspondence at coelmo.com. Let's talk The Sheep Detectives. I've only seen the trailer, but I laughed about 3 times.
Okay, The Sheep Detectives, which is the latest unexpected career swerve from writer Craig Mazin, as you said, who first rose to prominence with writing credits on Scary Movie and Hangover franchises, both of which were terrible. Then stunned everyone with Chernobyl, for which he won a Primetime and Broadcasting Press Guild Award. And he then moved on to The Last of Us, which I think earned him a Peabody. Well, what's next? Well, naturally, when you've done all that, you're going to do an adaptation of Leonie Swan's 2005 family-friendly German-language oddity, Glenkill ein Schafskrimi, which became an international bestseller known in English-language translations as you mentioned earlier, 3 Bags Full, a sheep detective story. And funnily enough, my friends Alan and Diego were staying over the weekend, and Diego is Argentinian, and 3 bags full means absolutely nothing. Yeah. And we're going, 3 bags full, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. No, absolutely nothing. Hence, a sheep detective story. Best way of describing it is Babe meets Knives Out. So it's directed by Carl Balder, whose directorial credits include Minions, Despicable Me 3, Minions, The Rise of Gru. So a big name in animation. The story follows an attempt by a flock of sheep to find out who had the knives out for their beloved shepherd, George, a shepherd who loved them like his own family. Here's a clip.
When my chores are finished and the sun starts to sink low in the sky, I choose a book to read out loud to them. Detective novels, mysteries, whodunits, all my favourites.
I know when Rodney Hollingshead was murdered, and I know who the real killer was.
I like to pretend that they follow along with the story, but I know in my heart that as special as they are, they're still sheep.
No, no more. Go on, a lot of you. I'll read the ending tomorrow.
Why would he stop there?
He was just about to say who the killer was.
This is torture. It was the maid, right?
The unmistakable voice before we heard the sheep talking, because of course they understand everything, of Mr. Huge Action there.
It is, yes, absolutely.
The sheep voice cast includes Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Bryan Cranston, Chris O'Dowd, Regina Hall, Patrick Stewart, Bella Ramsey, Last of Us, Rhys Darby, and a dual role for Brett Goldstein. The human being cast includes Emma Thompson as Lydia Harbottle, George's lawyer, who turns up to do the reading of the will. Molly Gordon as Rebecca Hampstead, the daughter George's friends didn't know about, but who turned up in his locale shortly before the Knives Out thing happened. Nicholas Galitzine as Elliot Matthews, the reporter who thinks there's a story there. Nicholas Braun as the foolish policeman Tim Derry, who is clearly in way over his head. And Huge Action. Now, I didn't know anything like you until I saw the poster in this case, in which Huge Action gets a front and center starring role. But since he is the person at the center of this murder mystery, he is necessarily absent for a lot of the drama.
Yes.
For if he was not, there would not be a mystery. As I said, I knew nothing about any of this when I went in. I knew the film was called The Sheep Detectives and had Huge Action in it. And consequently, I was pretty surprised by what happened with Mr. Huge Action in the opening overs. The biting the turf, fairly honest. But to be honest with you, I was pretty baffled by the whole thing, at least at first, okay? Because I had no idea, despite the title, A, it was going to be a murder mystery, B, that it was going to combine funny CG talking animals with some Watership Down style scary animal horror. I mean, there's a bit when the sheep, our sheep, meet the sheep from the adjoining field in the middle of the night that honestly have me thinking about George Romero horror movies. There is a touch of the Murder, She Wrote, cozy crime sleuthing going on. I mean, cozy crime is the big genre. If you're writing your next book, Simon, cozy crime, apparently that's the thing.
No, it definitely will not be anything like that. Thank you.
Okay. There is some post-Chicken Run, Soylent Green, pro-vegetarian terror about what the other shepherds who don't love their sheep as much as George does or did, what those sheep are actually being grown for. There is a bit of genuinely weird family tragedy pathos and then some sort of sheepy Shakespearean sacrifice for the greater good. And there is a whole lot of utterly bonkers plot twists, including a late in the day revelation about the mixing of blue and yellow to make green that had even me going, sorry, just do that again. What's more surprising than any of it? So you said you watched the trailer and you laughed 3 times, right?
I did, yeah.
When it started, it was like, what on earth is going on? And I thought, there's no way that any of this can work. And the weird thing is, it really, really does. And I found it really charming and really funny and really moving. I mean, the high caliber pedigree of everyone on screen aside, taking into account the fact that some bits do work better than other bits, much more of it works than doesn't work. And I came out thinking, that was really cute. That was really charming. As I walked out of the screening, one of the PR people was there and they said, what do you think? I said, I thought it was really cute. And then I caught myself thinking, I can't believe I just said that was really cute. I mean, the whole thing, the fact that the whole thing pivots on a much loved character biting the turf early on in the drama, you know, ruthless poisoning, and then much of the rest of the film being spent trying to figure out just how horrible human beings can be. And yet still somehow it manages to be charming. I mean, I had no idea about it going in, and I came out thinking, that's it. It's going to be a hit. It's going to be a hit, and people are going to really, really enjoy themselves, and it's going to work across a range of ages despite all that weird stuff. It's PG for mild violence, brief threat, and language, and that doesn't come anywhere close to describing how WTF strange it is. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cute.
Maybe that's what you make because you just mentioned all the, you know, the big things that Craig Mazin has done. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to make it like that if he hadn't done The Last of Us, if he hadn't done Chernobyl. You know, if he'd gone just straight comedy, it wouldn't been quite so strange.
He has had the most remarkable career. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable when you read, you know, Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, Hangover Part 2, Hangover Part 3, The Huntsman, Charlie's Angels, Dune Part 2. That's Charlie's Angels and Dune Part 2 are uncredited rewrites. And then Sheep Detectives. And then on television, Chernobyl, The Last of... I mean, yeah.
Two of the best. I mean, he was a guest on the show last year, but, you know, two of the... Yeah. You know, I remember when Chernobyl came out, just jaw on the floor. And I remember interviewing Anthony Horowitz, who said it's probably the greatest television show I have ever seen. And you go, oh, okay, right. Well, you've written quite a lot, so you know what you're talking about. And it is genuine. And it's been on television again recently. So,
yeah, just astonishing, just astonishing. Incidentally, on the subject of the scary movies,
yes,
you know, there's a new one on the way.
Great. Mm-hmm. What's it going to be called?
Scary Movie 6, I think.
Okay. Still to come, I mean, Sheep Detectives, there's a very good positive start to the show. Page 6, Mark, what's to come after the break?
After the break, we're going to be doing the chart rundown and we're going to be speaking to our very special guest.
Okay.
That's you. Is that? I am not on page 6. I'm just making it up.
No, that's obviously correct.
Okay, read what it says that I'm meant to say.
Steve Coogan in crime thriller Legends about a team of undercover civil servants aiming to infiltrate heroin smuggling rings in the 1990s. Mortal Kombat 2, in which the fan favourite champions, now joined by Johnny Cage himself, are pitted against one another in the ultimate battle to defeat the dark rule of Shao Kahn that threatens the very existence of the Earthrealm and its defenders. It doesn't have Sir Ian McKellen in it, but we do. Yes, our guest is Sir Ian McKellen, who'll be talking about his new film, The Christophers.
Was I meant to read all that out?
Apart from the last line, yes.
I'm not the presenter. That's your job.
It's on page 6. Anyway, all of that in a minute. And next we have the box office top 10, starting at number 10. Which is 10 in this country as opposed to over there. Rose of Nevada is at number 10. Jordan says, what a refreshing breath of analog air Mark Jenkin is in an oppressively digital world. His format and style could easily become tiresome and forcefully retro, but it doesn't even feel anachronistic. In fact, it's so natural and evocative, I could practically smell the licorice rolling papers. Kind regards from Jordan. Jonathan says, Dear M&S, I finally got a chance to see Rose of Nevada after missing out on tickets for it at the London Film Festival last year. had been keenly waiting for it to be released in cinemas. It was definitely worth the wait. What some other directors might have portrayed as a cozy, nostalgic fisherman's fable was instead presented as an unsettling, misty mystery that felt like a confusing dream where causality and characters have become twisted and interchanged. It was atmospheric and beautiful to watch too. The best accolade I can give it is that after seeing it with the other half last Sunday, we then went to see a different film yesterday, before which there was a trailer for Rose of Nevada. During the trailer, two of the characters had a short conversation that perhaps gave a clue to the puzzle, which made us both independently realize we had to watch Rose of Nevada again soon. The only negative aspect was that seeing the early 90s being portrayed as the irretrievably distant past made me feel very old. All the best from Jonathan. So that's Rose of Nevada at number 10.
Well, I'm thrilled that it's had 2 weeks in the top 10, because that is amazing for a film shot on wind-up clockwork camera. And I think it's Mark Jenkins' best and most accessible work.
Number 9 is Lee Cronin's The Mummy.
The best review of it was the one that I saw before I saw the film, which said it's The Exorcist with bandages, and that's exactly what it is. But if you're going to have Exorcist rip-offs, this is better than the official Exorcist rip-offs like Exorcist Believer.
Number 8 here, number 9 in Canada is The Drama.
One of my favourite films of the year, I think. Really provocative. I'm really interested to hear what people think after seeing it, because I think it raises a bunch of really thorny questions, but it's also really funny and really engaging. It's got a fantastic central performance by Zendaya and by Arpats. And I loved it.
Number 7 is The Magic Faraway Tree.
Again, look at that. So Sheep Detectives, which is sure to be top 3 next week, and Magic Faraway Tree, which is a terrific, likeable, family-friendly movie that I think adults and children alike will enjoy.
And number 6 is Patriots.
Yeah, I haven't seen Patriots. If you have seen it, send us a review.
Correspondence at coelmail.com. Project Hail Mary is at number 4 in America. Number 5
Amaze.
Here. Yes, Amaze. Number 4 here, number 5 over there is Hokum. Kaza says, what a roller coaster of a film. I was a little uncomfortable with all the awful men at the start, but Ohm's redemption arc, that's Ohm Bauman's character played by Adam Scott, was subtle enough I didn't notice it happening. After some clever redirection, the halftime twist was pleasantly unexpected and tension racked up steadily. The creepy rabbits hark back to McCarthy's other tales. That's director Damien McCarthy. Peter says, McCarthy is excellent at sustaining dread and using jump scares sparingly, which makes them hit hard when they land. There's also a vein of dry humour, largely by the central character. The setting does a lot of the heavy lifting, a remote, time-forgotten hotel, odd locals, and the strong sense that nobody sane should be staying here. And naturally, there's a forbidden honeymoon suite, allegedly haunted, with a locked room no one will go near. You can guess how well that rule holds. There is a rare recent horror. This is the rare recent horror that actually got under my skin. Worth your time if you like your scares quiet, ominous, and confident, says Peter. So that is Hokum at number 4.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed Hokum. Can I just say that I just checked that film at number 5 is not called Patriots. Number 6, pardon me. It's not Patriots. It's Patriot singular. Not to be confused.
You haven't seen that one either.
I haven't seen that either. Yeah, no, because it wasn't press screen. But I was looking at it thinking, why haven't I seen it? But it's because it wasn't press screen. That's why.
Number 3 here, number 3 there, the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Number 2 here, number 2 there, Michael.
Is there any correspondence?
No.
No, fine. Well, in that case, a totally passable nuts and bolts hagiography that leaves out so much of the story as to be laughable and pretends that its central figure is in fact a latter-day saint sent down to earth to free us all from the bonds of oppression and hardship, with some great tunes.
There is some conversation about it in the overfill car park or whatever it's called in Take Two. So there are some broader issues related to that which we will discuss. But actually, the box office top 3, which is the same here as it is over there, are all big hitters just measured in terms of people going to see these things. Number 1 is The Devil Wears Prada 2. Mark Woodruff. I went to my beautiful Art Deco cinema in downtown Los Gatos, California, and quickly noted that this is the Oasis reunion of movies. The audience were mainly like me in their 60s, looking to relive 20 years ago when everything was, better. This being America, the mark says, I'm English, people dressed up in stilettos and designer outfits, and that was just the men.
Hey.
And then he puts in brackets, boom tish here all week. So he's been listening to this show.
Tip
for
your
a while.
waitress.
We were served up Freeman levels of fluff, one for the kids, in this forgettable cheese fest. I can only imagine that the cast were paid obscene amounts of money to blot their copybooks with this mess. But there were interesting strands which were never pursued. The sweatshops that make the garments, the ruination of lives in the pursuit of profit, the ageism that exists in creative industries. Like a cheap piece of clothing, these themes just fell apart. However, because we are so invested in these characters, we went along with this self-indulgent slop with inane smiles on our faces. The film only confirmed the golden rule. If the actors seem to be enjoying themselves too much, then the audience won't. That's Mark Woodruff. I mean, I just think it is. I haven't seen it. You have. Your review is on last week's program. People are flocking to see these films, and they'll be keeping cinemas going. So well done for them.
Yeah, I'm pleased that this has knocked Michael off the top spot, which means that Michael was only at the top spot for 1 week. Although in that 1 week, it took so much money that is the equivalent of staying at the top spot for several weeks. Devil Wears Prada 2, as I said when I was reviewing it, it's just plot, and a bunch of machinations to get everybody in the same room so that they can do the thing that we like them doing. And it makes no sense, and it has none of the kind of classic arc of the first film. But when you've got Meryl Streep and Emily Blunt and Anne Hathaway and those characters, of course there's going to be a certain amount of fun. I actually thought that review that you just read out was completely spot on. I mean, it absolutely got to it. And I also think that there is something about when times are as they are now, that idea of, I just want to see a big bit of, what was the phrase? It was Freeman levels of fluff.
Freeman levels of fluff, yes. That won't translate around the world, but...
That is a magnificent joke to which I would just like to add, and...
Not half. Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's Super Mario, Michael Jackson, and The Devil Wears Prada. Would it be, just based on what you said last week, I was thinking about your review, is Prada 2 more about journalism than fashion?
No. I mean, it's funny because I was talking to somebody about this and I said, well, the plot stuff is all just fluff. And they said, well, what about the fact that, it's about the decline of print journalism and the rise of the interweb and journalists losing their job? I mean, it's not about that, is it? It's not about any of those things. It's not about any of the things that the plot appears to be about. In the first film, it is about it. It is about a wide-eyed innocent coming into a world that they believe will be one thing, being scared of and eventually overcoming their fear of a dragon lady who is at the center of that world. That's an arc. In the case of this, the plot is nothing other than a bus system. It is like a tube map to get character A into a room, or a Cluedo thing. We got to get Reverend Green in the room with the hammer and the bit of piping. That's all it is. So it's not actually about any of those things. So although it does lip service to the idea that, it's about journalism, it isn't. It isn't about anything. It's not about journalism. It's not about fashion. It's not about sweatshops. It's not about any of those things. It's about getting those characters that you liked before in a drama that had a story back into a series of rooms so they can do some things that you like watching them do. That's it.
Okay, and it's at number one, correspondence at coelmail.com, and you are just moments away from a conversation with living legend Sir Ian McKellen. Well, our guest this week is one of Britain's most distinguished stage and screen actors. Stand by for a conversation with Sir Ian McKellen. He's going to be with us very shortly. His latest role is in Steven Soderbergh's new film, The Christophers. Here's a clip from the film, and then we talk to Sir Ian.
Right, and while you're out, shall I rustle us up something? A little omelette?
You're going to make me an omelette?
Don't sound so surprised.
All right, then I'll have a cheese omelette.
Yeah, cheese omelette. That's an omelette with cheese.
Yeah.
how do you introduce the cheese into the omelette?
I'm just going to pick something up for us, yeah?
Yeah. Excellent teamwork.
And that is a clip from The Christophers. I'm delighted to say we've been joined by Sir Ian McKellen. Sir Ian, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I was going to say welcome to the podcast. You're always welcome, but you've welcomed us into your pub.
You're in the Grapes in Limehouse, yes.
And I don't think I've ever done an interview in a pub before. And
you don't even have a drink, but maybe later on.
Maybe later on. And the poster of the Christophers with Michaela Coel sitting in front of a wonderful oil painting.
Yes.
Which I hope you've got, the original.
No, I haven't got it. And I haven't even seen it, but I've only seen the poster.
Well, you absolutely need to have that. So
that sums it up, really. It sums up the film.
It's very good. But on a podcast, we need to use some words as well. So what are the Christophers?
The Christophers are a series of paintings which my character painted some time ago and abandoned. And they're up in his attic somewhere, in his ramshackle house, and not quite sure where it is, in the middle of London somewhere. And his two greedy children are eager to rescue these, what they hope are masterpieces, so that they can sell them when he dies. The trouble is they are not masterpieces because they're not finished. They're paintings that he began and didn't complete.
Right.
More than that, you needn't know.
And you play Julian Sklar. So how would you describe? He's an artist, but there's a lot going on there.
Well, he's not David Hockney, and he's not Francis Bacon, who used to live next door, incidentally. And he's not any painter who lives, but you feel as if he might be. Rather grumpy in his old age, lives by himself. It's all over, he thinks. And he's a sad man, lonely, and into his life walks this amazing woman who he spars with, and I think eventually, in a way, falls in love with.
Yes. Would you say he's calcified? I mean, he feels as though, Julian feels as though he's a very famous painter. He has been a very famous painter. Well, what happened to him? Did he get cancelled, or what was it that has happened to him which has kind of frozen him from, 20, 30 years?
A lover walked out on him, and it devastated him. Calcified? No, I think he's still quite juicy, but the juice is wasted. It runs away into the gutter. It's not put into his work. He hasn't painted anything for a long time. Is that believable? Yes, I think so.
Yes.
I think as you get older, you decide, am I going to go on or am I going to look back all the time? And he's static, and comes back to life, I think, through his meeting with this remarkable young girl.
And the remarkable woman is Michaela Coel, who plays Laurie. She's been sent by your ghastly children, played by James Corden and Jessica Gunning, and explain what, because it becomes something else, but she's on a mission. She's basically trying to swindle you, isn't she?
Well, it's a bit of a thriller, so we can't give too much away.
All right.
But yes, she's an agent of the two dreadful children. And she comes to try and rescue these unfinished paintings, the Christophers that are upstairs, so that she can do something with them. We shouldn't say what. But the plot gets nicely complicated, and the old boy's trying to work out what she's doing here in his house. And although he welcomes her, he resents her at the same time.
The atmosphere between the two of you is fantastic. You spark off each other wonderfully. Written by Ed Solomon. I think everyone who watches it will think this must have been written for you, Ian. That this is a fantastic role for you.
Well, directors and writers do often pay you that compliment, and I never quite believe it. But in this case, as they say, they wrote it for the two of us. Yes. It was absolutely written for her, so I'm happy to accept that it was written for me. But I can proudly say that I wrote one of the best jokes in the movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Oh. Okay. So if people can hear a whining noise, I imagine something in the pub has turned on, like the air conditioning or something. But
yes, don't worry about that.
We can carry on. So when you say you wrote one of the best jokes, see the movie too. It is a funny film. It is darkly comic. I saw an interview with you in where you said you have learnt to be funny, which kind of implied that you weren't funny. Is that something that you?
Well, I've learned not during the course of this film, during the course of a career. And when I started out, you used to get the script of a play that had been done previously in the West End, and you'd be doing some paltry revival for 2 weeks in Coventry. And the script would be marked with asterisks. And if there was one asterisk by a line, it meant that you were expected to get a laugh from the audience. 2 asterisks, a bigger laugh. 3, a really big laugh. 4, applause.
Okay.
Well, that's very daunting because the laugh line might be hello, and you're baffled as to how on earth that could be funny. Well, the truth of it is that truth is the heart of comedy. Unless you're being absolutely real, you won't be funny. And although there are techniques of comedy, like a double take, you have to think a double take. You can't just do it, otherwise it's not funny. So I learned over a long period to be at ease with making people laugh. And now I think that's the most enjoyable thing about acting, particularly in the theatre.
It's a Steven Soderbergh film. What is it like to make a film with Steven Soderbergh? But, when you're on set, I mean, most of the set is in a house, so it feels like a chamber piece, really, like a two-hander.
Well, you feel like you're a guest in his house and in his film, even inside his head, and you're at his service. And that's a very happy position to be in as an actor, because he's very confident as what he wants, and he lets you know if he's got it or if he hasn't. That said, he's not eager to do much preparation with the actors in advance. The script is there, and you're expected to have prepared it somehow on your own and just arrive and be ready to film. That's not how I've worked in the past. And I said, I do need a bit of preparation, a bit of rehearsal. So he lent me Ed Solomon, the screenplay writer, and Michaela, and he came round to my house next door, and we sat around the table for a week talking about the script and reading it and amending it, adding bits and removing bits. And at the end of the day, this work was sent over to the director for his approval, which invariably we got. And so that's how we prepared. But the actual filming was down to work straight away. And if he got what he needed, and he knew, because he was holding the camera and moving it around with the actors, there was no need to repeat it a second time. And it's usual when you're making a film to do it at least once or twice or 3 or 4 times. I remember on Lord of the Rings with Peter Jackson, Christopher Lee saying to me, "Good Lord," he said, "I had to do that scene 10 times. I said, "That's nothing. I did a scene yesterday 28 times. But with Soderbergh, no. Once, and you're off. Home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he goes back and edits, literally, the day's work, cuts it in his mind and in fact, so that by the end of the film, he has completed basically his work on it, which is extremely unusual. So that's a sign of his confidence and the accuracy of his eye, which is beautifully seen in the film. He is a character in the film, really. He's an observer.
Is he fulsome in his praise?
Fulsome?
Is he fulsome in his praise? Does he praise you a lot, or does he just expect you to get on with it?
I don't think he ever told me I was good. But I was warned about this. If he walked out of the room, that was high praise, because it meant we were on to the next thing.
You mentioned you mentioned Lord of the Rings and 28 takes or whatever. If I've got your diary right, you've done Avengers and you're going to do Gandalf, so the robes beckon again. It must be wonderful to be here in your pub, to be doing a film which I think is going to win all over the place, and be in your own bed and in your own pub. It must be a wonderful feeling.
And unfortunately, you can't just see, but just round the corner is Gandalf's staff to keep the hobbits and the imbibers in order. Yes. So even more at home.
Yes.
Well, yes, I'm off in the summer, although it'll be in New Zealand's winter, to do Andy Serkis's latest version of Lord of the Rings.
And are you excited about that?
Less than I would be if we were doing it in their summer, when New Zealand looks magnificent. It's windy and it's cold and it's wet. But I guess we'll be indoors most of the time, perhaps not on location as much as in the past. It'll be lovely to be back with the old team, but not many of the previous actors, some, but not many.
And how long does that shoot take?
I'll be there for 3 months, I think.
Okay,
yeah.
right. Yeah. The heart of the Christophers is sort of unfinished work. That's one of the things that it's about. These paintings that are upstairs, which we do get to see. And I wondered, do you have unfinished work that you would like to go back to? You know, that you started, or you would think, I would like to finish that?
I suppose I do, really. Working mainly as I do in the theatre, of course, you have many chances to improve. And sometimes you might play a big part, like King Lear, 100 times. And being me, I am better on the 100th performance than I was on the first night. Well, there are some parts that you feel, even after you've closed and a long run, that there was still more work to be done. I felt that very much when I fell off the stage as a Falstaff in Player King's, Rob Ike's version of Henry IV by Shakespeare, that I was robbed of the last month of the run when I could have perhaps nailed Falstaff.
You want to go back?
I do and I don't. Hamlet, which I played when I was 29, a good age to play Hamlet, I felt was unfinished business, and I came round to do it again when I was 82 on film and on stage. And I think King Lear, although I've done it twice, I may return to. I think that may be my next job in the theatre, trying to see what I didn't quite mind. These parts, you know, I'm talking about Shakespeare, Chekhov, they are, you never get to the bottom of them. So if you go back thinking you've already played it well, you'll find new stuff to do.
How wonderful to still be looking for new stuff and still be improving and still getting great roles.
Well, what else am I going to do with my life, you know?
Well, you could stand behind the bar.
I used to run the quiz in the Monday night quiz here. And I took a day each week to think up the questions. And I was behind the bar and I loved doing it. But my partners who had the license to the pub sacked me. They didn't think my performance was good enough. So I now come as an audience. But I had Derek Jacobi behind here asking the questions with me. Pat Stewart was here.
Fantastic. Well, if I may be so bold, I would suggest that BAFTAs and Oscars might be on the cards. I know it's probably bad luck to talk about that kind of stuff, but this movie and your role in it just feels like it's got hit.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Very happy, of course. But and I have read the reviews because they send them to me, and I've never been in the show which has had such universally words of approval. A lot in America. I think that's because Soderbergh is such a fascinating director that the critics, experts on film, respond positively. We'll see if the public does, and they have done in America. It's been very good. But it's in English. It's written by an American, directed by an American. it's a London movie, isn't it?
It is very much so.
But it couldn't be anywhere else. Julian is a very English man. And the glimpses you see of London physically and in the characters, you feel, this could not be set in Chicago or San Francisco or Sydney. It's a London movie as much as Manhattan is a movie about New York.
And it's a great film. Ian McKellen, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, Simon.
The always entertaining Sir Ian McKellen talking about his new movie, The Christophers. It's going to be reviewed next week. We've both seen it. And I thought, as I think you could tell from that conversation, I really, really enjoyed it. It is a very, very Ian McKellen performance.
Yes, and without sort of blowing the surprise of the review next week, I think it is the most McKellen I've seen. And it's not giving a whole bunch away to say I too very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is him. It is impossible to think of anyone else.
How much more Ian McKellen could it be? None more Ian McKellen.
Okay, full review of The Christophers coming on next week's programme. So let's talk about Legends then, because you've heard from Stephen Coogan. He was on last week's show. Because of all the various, restrictions and embargoes, Mark wasn't allowed to review it, but he can now.
Yes, so this is the new Netflix series from Neil Forsyth, the author and screenwriter and creator of British television shows such as The Gold, Guilt, and Bob Servant Independent. This is on Netflix, and you and I think, have both seen, well, I've seen 4 episodes. How many did you see?
I think the same. Yes,
At the point that we're recording this show, I am really desperate for more episodes to drop. So if you heard the Steve Coogan interview last week, you'll know some of this. If you didn't hear it, do go back and listen to it because it's a great interview. So Legends is loosely based on a true story. Steve Coogan plays head of customs operations, Don Clark, in the early 90s in what Coogan in that interview referred to as the last hurrah of the Thatcher era, a period in which she needed a crisis she could solve. And that crisis was seen to be the infamous war on drugs, specifically in the case of this heroin. So what we see is the government tasking customs with stemming or stopping the flow of drugs into the UK, which is a very, very hard task and involves recruiting customs officers for special undercover assignment, despite the fact that these customs officers have no training in that area. So, as Steve Coogan was saying, effectively, it's like taking people who are baggage handlers and saying to them, well, we'd like you to be undercover cops. Here is a clip in which Tom Hodges' high-ranking civil servant basically explains the mission.
For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Angus Blake, Director of Investigations for Her Majesty's Customs. This is my head of operations, Don Clark.
Right.
We're holding a 3-week top-secret training program for new recruits and are looking throughout the agency for those who we think might offer us what we need to attempt something we've never done before.
What's the investigation? Did you miss the secret bit?
For security reasons, only those who complete the 3 weeks will learn what the investigation entails.
Would this be a promotion?
For some, it would technically be a demotion.
Where's the training?
It's a residential program.
Is that overtime then?
No.
Well, if it's residential training, it has to be overtime.
We can't take you if you're deaf, mate.
Would we get a per diem?
A per what?
Lunch money.
Lunch money? Why are you 12?
If you've asked a question, then please leave the room.
I was laughing all the way through that, and I could see you were too. The dour sound. Yeah, I know, but also the dour sound of Steve Coogan going, which part of Secret did you not understand? So, exactly, ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And those ordinary people are played by such top-notch talent as Tom Burke and Hayley Squires, both fabulously. As far as Don is concerned, which is the character played by Steve Coogan, he's in charge of this operation. He has a sort of jaded, world-weary view of life. And we learn over the episodes that I've seen so far that he has experience himself in having gone undercover. And we learn that in his own experience of going undercover, he found out what a toll that can take. So it's his job to help select and train the operatives, to teach them to become legends. And the title, Legends, that refers to the identities that they have to assume as their alter egos. And the whole point is that in order for the alter ego thing to work, you have to believe in it. So you have to create a character that will stand up under scrutiny. And during the episodes, you see that scrutiny being quite perilous. But it also means that you have to create a character that has the danger of taking over your life. You have to commit to it. I think the phrase that you used was that they have to lean into it. And as I said, Steve Coogan's character already has experienced how that can take over your life. And he knows that when he's recruiting these people who are effectively rookies in this area, that they're not all going to be able to walk away from it with ease. In fact, if they do their job properly, they're going to become immersed in a world that they have never encountered before. And they're not just going to be able to leave it behind and go home. So there is a whole thing going on in this, which is there is a commitment being made by these people who at the beginning don't know what it is. What's the mission? Which part of Secret didn't you understand? We'll only tell you what the mission is if you get through the training. But in doing that, in getting through the training, in kind of becoming hooked on the mission, they are already committing to something that might have life-changing consequences. So the story plays out between London, Liverpool, Turkey, which is where the drugs are coming from. You heard from that clip that a lot of the dialogue is kind of witty and satirical. I think the phrase that Steve Coogan used, he said it's light. There is a lightness of touch. He had a brilliant phrase, which was a stone skipping lightly over deep waters. Remember that?
Yeah. No, it's very that works very well.
But I also think what he didn't quite flag up was how edge of the seat gripping some of it is, which leads me to my complaint about episode 4, because when I saw that I'd been given 4 episodes, I thought the whole thing was 4 episodes long. So I binge watched the 4 episodes and was then really, really disappointed to find it. No, I'm not at the end. In fact, at the end of episode 4, it's like, now, okay, I need to know what happens next.
You
now,
can't leave Bulldog Basil there.
You can't leave Bulldog Basil.
Preposterous.
Wow. So far we've done a Fluff Freeman joke and a Basil Brush joke.
Yes.
And last week we did Flanders and Swan and the Goon Show.
More on that in take 2.
Heaven's sake. In that interview that you did with Steve Cohen, I was in it, but I wasn't talking about the TV stuff. He was saying that, that obviously as far as the character is concerned, it's fairly close to home, certainly in terms of accent, although he did say that he sort of northerned it up a little bit. And he also used a fabulous phrase, which was that he said that there is this maxim in my profession, which is ready, fire, aim, which I absolutely loved. But it also says something. It's not just about the technique of acting, but it's also something about the situation that these characters find themselves in. Ready, fire, aim is they sort of train for this thing and get approved, and then they're told what it is, and they're only really aiming at the point that they're on the job. So I was swept up in it. I was really swept up in it. I mean, yes, it's witty. Yes, it's entertaining. As I said, listening to that clip then, there was a couple of really good laughs in it. But it's also really gripping. Tom Burke is amazing, but he's amazing in everything.
Yeah,
Hayley Squires is amazing in everything. And I think for Coogan, this is a really interesting role because although there are comedic elements to the drama, it's a straight role. And he was saying in his interview with you that later life has brought him more interesting roles. And I think that's true. I think he's got to the point now when he is getting these kind of knotty, slightly gnarly characters. And he's doing it really well. I mean, he has a resting dour face. That's exactly right. But I don't want to underplay just how, I don't know whether you agree with this, but I found there were several sequences in it which I thought were really properly edge of your seat tension.
Yes, and because, again, we mentioned it in the interview, undercover is something that we've seen done many, many times.
Yeah.
But it's always trained cops or spies or something, so they know what they're doing. These people really don't. I mean, they're good, but they've had, a couple of minutes of training, and then all of a sudden they're on a stakeout. And so therefore you thinking that's me. You empathize with them in a way that you would never do with a spy or a cop, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole thing about by the time they know what it is that they're being required to do, they are already doing it.
Yeah.
So although, yes, there is the whole thing about you have to volunteer for this, they don't know what they're volunteering for. And at the point that they're agreeing, they're already in it. And I really enjoyed it. And I really want the rest of the episodes to drop now, please.
Legends is new on Netflix. Let us know what you think. Correspondence at Kombat.com. Well, let's tread lightly then. Mark has been entertaining us and making us chortle all the way through the show. But now it's the real hardcore stuff. We step with gay abandon into the much-loved laughter lift. Well, hey, Mark.
Hey, son.
What do you call a bovine French philosopher? You're right. Albert Camus. I jumped in because you'd have probably worked that out very, very quickly.
Okay, good.
I went to the doctor's this week for a digestion issue.
Did you?
And she asked me for a stool sample. I'm way ahead of you, doctor, I said, and I pulled out a Ziploc bag full of tiny seats without back support or armrests. And she threw me out. I still have no idea why I'm pooping out tiny items of furniture. Time to change doctors, I think. But Mark, did you hear about the bloke who collapsed trying to climb Mount Everest?
I didn't.
Authorities just found Himalayan there.
That's quite good.
It's all right then. That's as good as it gets anyway. What's still to come? Page 12.
Mortal Kombat with a K2.
Starring Carl Urban. Is it that one?
Starring Carl with a K, Urban.
On the way. So Mortal Kombat with a K in just a moment. Dom from London, first of all. Dear Slarty Bartfast and the Hippopotamus. Long-term listener, second-time emailer. I think we promoted this from Take Two. I've always enjoyed the references to Flanders and Swan and Douglas Adams on the podcast.
Oh, good.
And the evident affection you hold for these giants of British comedy. Usually I'm content to chuckle along, but last week's show prompted me to write, not only for the rare double sighting of Flanders and Swan and Hitchhiker's Guide, but for Mark's claim that Simon's Canother Camus gag only applies to, quote, very, very old listeners. While I'm not going to cancel my subscription in offence, I want you to know you have at least one listener in his early 30s who's caught every allusion to the GNU, the Hippopotamus, Deep Thought, and Slarty Bartfast. Thanks to tapes and CDs played relentlessly by my parents, I've been devoted to both Flanders and Swan and Hitchhikers since childhood. Two examples illustrate this. At 11, I entered my school talent contest, not with violin or yo-yo tricks, but an unaccompanied, from-memory performance of The Gas Man Cometh to a baffled hall of children. The applause was fitful, but I somehow won first prize. Still a point of pride. And The Gas Man Cometh is a famous Flanders and Swan song. I think it was even like a hit. Like it was a 45. And during a PSHE lesson on the Life Education bus, I didn't know there was such a thing as a... Did you have a Life Education bus in your day, Mark?
I've never heard of such a thing, no.
Anyway, Dom from London has travelled on the Life Education bus. I was asked what alcohol was. And I replied via the Encyclopedia Galactica, a colourless volatile liquid intoxicating to certain carbon-based life forms, which is Douglas Adams. An awkward silence followed, the teacher staring at me with an apparent combination of bemusement and fear. Eventually, she gathered herself and I wasn't called on to answer any more questions for the remainder of the class. So keep up the good work. At least one millennial knows exactly what you're on about. Up with mud, glorious mud, and down with Vogue on poetry. All the best, Dom from London. Okay, well, very good. Let's assume that our gags from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s are all understood by everybody.
What's the name of the cocktail in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, to the effect of which is like having your brain smashed out by a slice of lemon wrapped around a gold brick?
Yes. You'll have to look it up.
It's called, I can't remember what
it's a regular feature.
I used to be able to do the whole of the, thy micturations are to me like gerbil lurgid bludges on a slurgid bee. Fruip, I implore thee, and hooptiously drangle me with. Remember that? There's the Vogue on poetry. And then at the end
what's
of
the cocktail?
Shall I look it up?
I'm looking it up.
Okay,
Pangalactic Gargle Blaster.
Pangalactic Gargle Blaster. I knew
it
it had
is.
that. The Pangalactic Gargle Blaster, the effect of which is like having your brain smashed out with a slice of lemon wrapped around a gold brick.
Perfect.
Incidentally, very quickly,
yes.
If you are a fan of the Flanders and Swan, and if you are a fan of the stuff that we've been talking about, there is an LP which I think you can probably download called Hoffnung at the Oxford Union.
Oh yeah,
which is Gerard Hoffnung at the Oxford Union in 1958, which is one of the funniest things I have ever heard, and that's got amazing stuff on it. That if you love Flanders and Swan, you will love Hoffnung at the Oxford Union, which begins with him coming on stage and saying, "I am Gerard Hoffnung, Gerard after my father, and Hoffnung after Gerard."
There you go. And this is classic kind of 1950s comedy, which actually still holds up.
It really does. Really, really does.
A century later. Okay, so Mortal Kombat with a K. Off we go.
Yeah. So the Mortal Kombat video game series came to the cinema first in the mid-90s during that wave of very, very terrible mid-90s video game adaptations, which included the Bob Hoskins Super Mario Brothers and Street Fighter. And I remember reviewing it when it came out because I think we must have been at Radio 1 together. I said that by comparison with those other movies, the original Mortal Kombat, it was Paul W.S. Anderson and Chris Lambert, it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. And then there was the sequel, which was a flop, and that kind of killed off the franchise. And then in 2021, when we were now in sort of the current way that we do the show, there was a new Mortal Kombat movie directed by Simon McQuoid, and it was co-produced by James Wan, Saw and Insidious, co-written by Greg Russo. And it kind of breathed new life into the franchise. It had Louis Tan as Coel Young, who's a cage fighter who finds himself drawn into this world that is explained to him by Jessica McNamee's Sonya Blade. And so that was quite good. And it was like, okay, fine, this is getting closer to the ethos of the video game. So now Sonya Blade is back in Mortal Kombat 2, which is written by Jeremy Slater, as is Coel, as is Josh Lawson's impressively obnoxious Kano, who's the loudmouthed Australian. There is any other kind of Australian who got all the best lines in the first film. So the first film, if I remember correctly, it ended with Coel going off in search of Johnny Cage. Now, the reason I remember something about this was there was a whole bunch of stuff around the first film about why Johnny Cage wasn't in it. And we were told that the reason Johnny Cage wasn't in it was because he was a giant personality, in inverted commas, that would throw the film out of balance. Well, here, that giant personality is played by Carl with a K, Urban, whose Johnny Cage we meet as a washed-up B-movie actor failing to sell his old movies at fan conventions. He was once a great black belt fighter. Then he became a movie star who fought battles while wearing black sunglasses, looking like like Tom Cruise in Risky Business. Now he's a nobody, except apparently to the gods of fate, who decide that he is the person who is needed to join the champions of Earthrealm, which is in danger of falling into the hands of evil Shao Kahn. Here is a clip from the movie. Now, I should say this clip actually comes from very near the end of the movie, but it's not a plot spoiler. It's just an indication of the general tone.
You want to know what makes a hero? It's not destiny. It's not something you're born with. It's searching for greatness.
Johnny Cage, you have been chosen for Mortal Kombat.
Then realizing you've had it in you this entire time.
There we go. And then there's some gags. So the cast now also includes Tati Gabrielle and Adeline Rudolph as Jade and Kitana, respectively, which fulfills the fact that the director had said from the previous film, if I do another one, I'm going to go deeper into the mythology, and also I'm going to have more female characters, which this does. So as with the 2021 reboot, this is impressively blood-splattered. There's lots of kind of squishy violence. There's lots of gratuitous, albeit CGI, gratuitous gore, or at least as much of it as you can get away with in a 15 certificate film. In the age of the video nasties, this would have been prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act. Now it is 15 for strong, bloody violence, infrequent, very strong language. So it's got the the same thing that the first one had. I mean, it's the script is witty. I have to say, I think Carl Urban is great, but Urban and Lawson in particular, playing things for laughs. They hit many good home runs. I laughed quite a few times. As for the action, there's lots of that thing that you do in the video games in which people jump or fall completely unconvincingly from one level to another. But in a way, that's kind of okay because it sort of makes sense in terms of the origin story. There's an array of entertaining weaponry, including robot arms, laser eyes, smashy hammers, fighty sticks, and most remarkably, bitey hats. The production design is sort of like the Mad Max movie meets Warcraft, the movie, and under 2 hours, the whole thing doesn't outstay its welcome. Now, I saw this in a multimedia screening. They had a national press show, which was one that was just for critics, but because of the way that the day worked out yesterday, I saw it in a multimedia, which means there's a whole bunch of people. And when you go in, they sort of give you like a bucket of popcorn, like literally a bucket of popcorn, which has got the collectible bucket. And it seemed to play really well with the audience. And despite the fact that it was later in the evening, which is always a pain for me because then I've got to get the train back afterwards, I found the time skipped by and I enjoyed it. I laughed quite a few times. I thought that the squishy gore was fun. I mean, 10 minutes afterwards, it was hard to remember much significant about it, so I made my notes immediately. But I thought it was generally smashy, bashy fun.
When you started talking about it, I did think you were talking about Keith Urban, not Carl Urban.
Oh, Keith Urban. Yeah, that's a very different matter.
A country singer married to Nicole Kidman for 20 years. Him.
Yes.
So it's not him.
Not him. Carl Urban.
Is there any country and western music in this at all?
No. At least, no, not off the top of my head. No, I don't believe so. No.
I interviewed him once many years ago back at, I think it was Radio 2. And
Keith or Carl?
Keith, definitely Keith Urban. And the plugger, the record promotions guy who was with him, kept on saying to me, you can't call him a country artist. You mustn't mention country because he's crossover. You know, he's a pop star. You can't mention country. So I went, okay, fine, whatever. So, you know, play a song. Keith Urban, not Carl Urban. Welcome to the show. You know, how would you describe your record? And he says, well, it's a country record, really. And I think, okay, there you go. See, it's absolutely fine. He was absolutely perfectly fine with reference to country, and it was just the promotions. They were trying to make him as a crossover artist anyway.
When I interviewed Angelina Jolie for the Culture Show, I was told you cannot mention hackers and you cannot mention her relationship with, oh, heaven's sake, him from Hackers.
Pitt.
No, from Trainspotting. You know.
Squeeze.
Pardon me?
Glenn Tilbrook. Christopher.
No, not Glenn Tilbrook. Sorry, I am literally having a senior moment. People listening to this will hear Mark having a senior moment. He's going to look up what's the name of the guy, Johnny Lee Miller. Okay, he said you can't mention hackers and you can't mention Johnny Lee Miller, and literally to whom Angelina, I think she was married to him, and Angelina Jolie. Almost the first thing she said was, "I hear you're a fan of Hackers. I love that film. I met my first husband on that film."
There you go. Exactly right. What a good film that is. And I mentioned Squeeze because they've got the Play Out track on the soundtrack.
They have, absolutely. That's right, yes. Yes, he was married to Angelina Jolie 1996 to 2000, and she brought it up, and she was very delighted to talk about it. And I said, I love that film. She said, great, so do I.
Before we're done, let's do a quick What's On then. Thank you very much indeed for the audio and video stuff that's coming in. We have one here from Alex Scarrett.
Hello, Mark and Simon. Love the podcast. Hope you can do a shout out for our play at Brighton Fringe this year, Sherlock Holmes vs Arsène Lupin, a drag crime caper. It's a new comedy pitting England's most famous consulting detective against France's most infamous gentleman burglar. And it's running from the 16th to the 21st of May at Brighton Fringe. We hope we can see you there. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Sherlock Holmes versus Arsène Lupin, a drag crime caper, Brighton Fringe, 16th to the 21st of May. Okay, so that is it for this week. This has been a Sony Music Entertainment production. This week's team was Jen, Eric, Josh, Heather and Dom. Before we go, thanks to Jeff Bartrup for letting us know about an old engineering colleague, Ian Dealey, who passed away recently. He will be missed, but thanks very much for telling us about that. The redactor to the show was, as ever, Simon Paul, who was here this week. And if you're not following the pod already, please do so wherever you get your podcasts. Come and join us on Patreon for all the good stuff there. Mark, what is your film of the week?
My film of the week is The Sheep Detectives, and those are not words I ever thought I would say out loud.
So say that sentence again.
My film of the week, Simon, is The Sheep Detectives.
Excellent. Correspondence at Kermode.com is where you take part in the show, also on Patreon. I will bestow a year's Ultra membership to our correspondent of the week, who I think has to be Dom from London. The Douglas Adams and Flanders and Swan references.
That was great.
A go-go. Thank you very much indeed for listening. There is another take which has landed alongside this one. Here, Mark, don't you find public Wi-Fi a waste of time when you're travelling?
Is that why I never hear from you when you're off on your Scandi jollies?
Well, I'm certainly not shelling out for a roaming data package just to call you. I've got Danish pastries to be buying.
Well, I wouldn't be bothering with public Wi-Fi. Haven't you downloaded the Saley eSIM app I keep telling you about? All you have to do is get the app and choose one of Saley's affordable eSIM plans in over 200 destinations. Install the eSIM, it'll be activated instantly on arrival. It significantly reduces and even eliminates roaming fees. No more queuing at dodgy airport kiosks for a local SIM card.
Well, that all sounds very easy, but surely I'll still have issues with privacy.
Well, actually, because Saley is brought to you by the creators of NordVPN, who know about this sort of thing, you can activate Saley's security features and browse more confidently. Change your virtual location, block malicious ads, and stay safer with web protection.
Okay, all right, I'm sold, provided I can conveniently get 15% off.
Well, you can conveniently get an exclusive 15% discount on Saley data plans. Use the code TAKE at checkout. Download the Saley app or go to saley.com/take.
Show QR code on screen.